Well, welcome back to Unfiltered, Unspoken Podcast with your girl, Miss Confidence and City Said. And as we said, we're going to continue to bring you life experiences because we ain't going nowhere. I want to welcome a good friend, Rodney Grimes. He has a podcast, People to People, doing similar stuff, but more stuff for the community. So I'm going to bring Rodney right on up to introduce himself and tell him a little about himself. And then, as you know, Sid is going to kick off the first question. Welcome, Rodney.
Good morning, ladies. How y'all doing today?
Mhm.
You
Good
know, first,
morning. Good morning. Awesome.
you already know. First, I gotta give honor to God just for another opportunity to be able to share some information to support people, and it's a pleasure to be on this program with you two young ladies. My name is Rodney Grimes. I'm 63 years old, born and raised in the old town of Alexandria, Virginia. I'm a former Marine. I'm a father of three biological kids and three stepchildren. I was abused as a young child coming up, mentally, physically, and spiritually, I should say, not sexually, but abused. It was mainly by my father, who was an alcoholic. He also was a World War II veteran. He was in the Korean War, Vietnam. So my father had a lot of trauma in his life that he brought into ours. And that's pretty much it. I did at one time become slightly an abuser myself, but through the grace of God and the acknowledgement of my past, I learned to be a supporter and not an abuser.
Well, thank you for coming on today and being willing to share your life experience. So we always take it back to the beginning. You did already mention, you kind of went through some things in your childhood in regard to your father. So what was life like, growing up? What was home structure like? I know you said that he was a veteran, but was he still, active duty at that time? Did you see a lot of him? How was your household structure like? And what was that area of trauma like for you?
Well, basically, I really didn't really get to know my father and remember him until I was about 7 years old. So prior to that, it was like heaven in my home with my mother and my three sisters and my brother. I was a very, very spoiled child by my mom and my brother and my older sister. So in the beginning of my life, it was beautiful. When I turned 7 years old, I recall a man coming into the house, and because we grew up in a house that was not that big, I used to have to share rooms with either my brother or my sisters. I used to sleep with my mom all the time. And I remember this man walking in and just telling my mother to get me out the bed. And as I got out the bed, I didn't know who he was. And I started crying. And he slapped me and told me to get out the room. And that's how I met my dad.
Oh wow, that's deep. So, as a child at that moment, emotionally, you have a man telling you to get out the bed. He smacks you. What was going through your head as a child?
Who the hell is he? I want to know who is this because I don't know who this dude is. All I know is that that's my mama. She belongs to me. I belong to her. And now some guy's coming up in here telling me that I have to get out the bed, and that was just not really something that I was ready to deal with. Didn't know how to deal with it. So I remember standing in the hallway, and I remember my mom giving me this look like, to tell me it's okay. And I remember her telling me to go in the room with my sisters. And I didn't like the man from the very beginning. That when I woke up the next day, if I had been able to be a genie and turn into a grown man, I'd have broke my foot off in his behind. God forgive me.
Ain't nothing to be forgiven for. That sounds pretty valid. Somebody else need to be asking for forgiveness in this situation, but that's that's rough. Now, was it I guess, a situation or atmosphere where it's just like, your mother was accepting of whatever discipline he was trying to provide? Or did she ever, step in as a buffer or be like, you're doing too much? How did that go about?
Well, technically, what happened as it escalated through the years, my father, he had literally, when he came home that time, I don't recall him ever leaving again. And we went from heaven to hell. And then I realized that this man had a tendency to be very abusive. He would hit on my mom. He would hit on us, beat us, call us names. It was really, really a rough time. And I just couldn't understand how that we can go from one extreme to another. So the abuse was just trauma. It was trauma because I went from having all this love and everybody, treating me like I was special to now I see this man walking around with this towel wrapped around him sometimes, and he's coming out the room with my mom and he's telling us what to do. And my mom is like, do it. And eventually it kicks in and he's daddy. Okay. And so it just really became very traumatizing to me because he never hugged me. He never patted me on the head. He never came up and said, I love you. Never. So it was just trauma. And it began to become a tattoo in my heart and my memories. And it became a tattoo to my thoughts among other people, because now inside the house, it was always trauma. Outside of the house, nobody knew the drama that we was going through, except the people that grew up on the block, because the police was coming to our house every weekend for 3, 4, 5 years.
So why was the police coming to your house for 3, 4, 5 years straight all the time?
Because my father, he drinks on Friday. Friday night, we already knew. Get ready. Because that and my father would drink. He would be on Monday to Friday. My father would from Monday to Friday, he would drink. He wouldn't drink. He would start drinking after he got off work on Friday. He had a job right down the street from the house. So once he came in from his job on Friday, it was always a big gallon of Smirnoff vodka. I can't stand that stuff. And it used to sit in a corner down in the dining room. And he always had a gallon of it. As soon as he would come in on Friday evening after he got off work, he'd start drinking. Friday night, things would be a little rough. Saturday morning, he'd probably hit my mom or beat one of us, calling us out our name, something. And this went on. It got so dramatic. One time my father tried to blow the kitchen up, to blow the house up. When the police came, my father was sitting there with all the smoke. We standing outside, and my father was just sitting there, and he would have a smile on his face, or he'd just be sitting there looking like, yo, hey, whatever. But see, back then, this was in the 60s. Technically, it wasn't really against the law to beat on your wife. So they didn't arrest him every time that he came. So, not too long ago, for real, a man could hit his wife and the police is not going to do anything. They might try to calm it down a little bit, but they wasn't going to arrest him. And so a lot of times they come in, get him calmed down. And sometimes we might have to call him 2 times in one night. It all depends on how drunk he was.
Have you ever seen him meet his match?
It was me.
Amen. Amen to that. How'd that go down?
Well, technically, my mom is my heart, and my sisters and my brother. I love them. I love my family dearly. I am my father's child too. So whatever was in him technically was in me too. So as I got older, my brother had left and went away. That's not my brother's father, but my brother's a lot bigger than me, so my brother could handle them a lot better than I could. But I ended up taking martial arts to be able to fight my dad. And by the time I was about 14, going on 15 years old, I never forget I received my yellow belt. So by this time I'm learning the techniques and kicks and punches and things. One day he hit my mother in the face while she was in the kitchen. I was downstairs in the basement, me and one of my best friends, and some of my friends knew about my father abuse because we had plotted to kill my dad one time. That's how bad it was. And my friend, he said, "Come on, man, let's go up there and jump him." I said, "No, I got this." I came upstairs. My mom was holding her face, and I remember seeing her in the kitchen, and he was standing in the living room. And I just looked at him and I just side kicked him, knocked him down. And I got on top of him and I said, "You're not going to hit my mother no more." And my mom was sitting there and she was like, "What? What's going on?" Because my mother she's never seen me. She didn't even know I was going to the karate classes because it was given to us free. And but that was my intent. I was going to learn karate so that I could protect my mom.
Oops. So what did your dad do when you retaliated against him?
He kind of got up and started laughing. My dad was he was a trip because he got up and started laughing and he was looking at me like he was shocked, but at the same time he was like, "Damn," excuse my language, but anyway, it didn't stop him though. He still continued to do it. And as I got bigger and stronger, I continued to step in. I did it enough till he got tired of getting them punishments, because if I came in and I found out he hit my mom, I go right to him. I drag him out the bed or whatever the case may be and say, "I told you don't hit my mother again." I get at him. It got to the point that my mom started to see, and I guess the abuse was coming from me to him. My mom, she had many times would tell me don't put my hands on her. But my dad, like I said, it was many times he would, I could wake up and he would be standing over me with a hammer or something. And, one time I turned over, he was standing up over me with a hammer and said, "I smash your brains out." But I was like, back then, being a young teenager, I was indulging in a few things here and there. I probably was all buzzed up or whatever. I was laying on the couch. I never forget. I said, "Well, go ahead." And I just turned over. But that wasn't unusual for my dad to, threaten me with a weapon or something like that. It wasn't unusual.
So, looking back on things, your mother was definitely displaying, kind of like battered woman syndrome. But in the time, before you can really put a name to it, did you feel like any resentment towards it? Like, like, how can you tell me not to put hands on him, but look at what's going on? Like what, I guess, how did that affect your relationship with your mother, if any? Or maybe what you said.
It never really affected my relationship because I wasn't aware of what was going on between my mom and dad until I ended up joining the Marine Corps. And as I joined the Marine Corps and became a young man, I started to evaluate things from my past into the present, and I start to realize certain things that were going on. So it started to click. And I start to find out why my dad was doing some of the things he did. So it was two sides to the story. It's his side, her side, and then the truth. And I started to see the truth on many things. And so it made it so that I started to get a different perspective of my father. And before my father died, I became his friend. I did. And I want just to put that out there, I ended up forgiving my dad. I did. I forgave him. But as far as my mom, I didn't blame her for everything. I just was kind of curious why did she stay there and why he was beating on us and beating on her like that. I couldn't understand that. But one time I did ask my mom and she was like, "Where was I going to go?" She said, I had 5 kids. Where was I gonna go? But like I said, it's some personal stuff that I won't really discuss. That triggered my dad, and it was really profound as I start to find out, and that's how I was able to forgive him. So, and I also did some little investigation. I didn't really know my dad's background or his family like that, but I met a few people here and there, and I found out that my father came up in a very, very abusive situation himself. And also that my father had murdered a man when he was 16 years old. And in order for him not to go to prison, he had to do 20 years in the army and in the military. And so that was he couldn't get out. He had to do 20 years. So that was what I understood. And again, like I said, as I became an adult, and once I became a Marine and a father myself, and being in relationships and having these different things to take place, I started to realize something. I had picked up some of my father's traits. I got to tell you that. I at one time was abusive as well, that I didn't have a problem putting my hands on my wife. If she hit me, I hit her back. And sometimes if she made me mad, I hit her first. But that was a confusion part of my upbringing, because I thought that's a part of love. I thought that was part of the family structure. You fight, make up, eat dinner, keep it moving. So, a lot of confusion went on throughout this whole process. But for the viewers, I want people to understand something. You have to face the truth of one with yourself. If you're an abuser, you better admit it to yourself. And then you have to get some help, because you can't try to make excuses. I can't blame what my father did to me on how I'm acting as an adult. I had to take the responsibility to seek some help and face the truth that if I don't do something, I will be repeating the same trauma and drama that my father gave to me, to my family as well.
Okay. So with your dad, he pretty much did a crime and they punished him by forcing him to enroll himself. So I can only imagine from that trauma and then serving the traumas that he went through from fighting the war, and then he just comes back. Did your mother welcome him in the house, or he just was like, "Okay, I'm coming back"?
Well,
Because
from my understanding, it wasn't about welcoming him, because my father was the provider. Now, that's one thing I can say about my dad. My dad made sure. I don't never remember the lights being cut off. I don't never remember the water being cut off. And my father was a very, very talented man. He could do anything. He could paint, draw, write. I mean, I ain't gonna say write. I don't never remember him writing, but we never had a plumber come in our house. We didn't have nobody do nothing. My father did everything. We could.
so
Go ahead.
So that was the control. Your dad was that provider and your mother depended on that. So she sounds like she suffered the abuse to make sure that y'all were okay as
Yeah, because
well.
while he was away, my mom was living a luxurious life. Because before my dad came, all I remember was parties in the backyard and my aunts, everybody having a good time, man. I had quite a few aunts, man, and it was just a party. And I didn't realize that not every guy that was at the party wasn't my uncle. So when I tell you there's 2 stories, his story, her story, and then the truth. So as I became older, I started realizing some things, and I was able to understand some of the things that triggered my dad to be the way he was with us. So my mom is my heart. I love my mother dearly, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. And sometimes even when you find out the truth of things, you realize that the person who's doing the beating and abuse and everything, they have a story too. And I mentor different people in different areas. And when I deal with someone who's going through that, I say, before you condemn them, try to find out who they are and what was their past like. Because then you may understand why they're responding to you the same way. Here, I'm a loving man. I love God. I love God dearly. And on top of that, I love my family dearly. I love my children. And when I was married, I loved my wife. But it was these things that happened in my life that made it okay for me to do these things because I thought it was normal. But when I realized putting your hands on a woman, man, that's not normal. No man should put his hand on a woman. No reason. None. Walk away from her.
And a woman shouldn't put her hands on a man either. So we got to make that clear
right.
as well.
But nobody. First of all, God, your body is your temple, and you got to understand anything within your arm reach belongs to you. And you can take your arm and stand in one circle and go all the way around, but in that arena, that belongs to you. So nobody's supposed to come within your arm reaching your face. Now they violating. That's right. So when you talk about that, we all are individuals, and we have to understand it. See, people have a tendency to think that when you get married or you're in a relationship that you have some type of ownership. You do not own anybody, nobody. And so as we were coming up and the abuse was going on, people have a tendency to think, oh, I got the right to hit her, like this and that. I used to think when my wife hit me, I thought it was okay for me to hit her back because she hit me, But when my daughter was born, I had a different perspective. I was like, yo, don't put your hands on my baby. I don't care what she do. She could throw up on you, spit on you, whatever. You need to call me first. Now, I'm not saying what she did is right, but I'm going to tell you this. Don't put your hands on my baby. That was just how I felt. And then when I start to realize how much I was thinking about protecting my daughter and my sons too. My sons was a little different because I always knew that my boys were going to be able to handle themselves because, I made sure of that. But it was just something about having that little girl that, I realized, man, you ain't supposed to be hurting nobody. And at that point, everything changed in my life that I didn't want to put my hands on anybody anymore.
Now, what is it exactly about? Because I know you said you kind of, in a way, had an epiphany when going into the service yourself. So what particular things did you kind of make sense of on both sides that kind of gave you the, better understanding of your parents?
One, I had a son and my fiance who was at home while I was overseas. And when I came home to a 2-year-old son. And things weren't the way they were supposed to be when I came home. And so immediately I became very abusive. Immediately. And dealt with some situation in a way that wasn't appropriate. Same thing with my dad. And, when I realized what had happened and how things transpired, I was like, damn, now I know why dad was upset, why things went the way they went, and when you become a military man or woman, technically you are now trained to be a professional killer, plain and simple. They teach you techniques on how to kill people. In the Marine Corps, we got 30 seconds. You want to stay alive, you better know how to cut a throat or cut a kidney out. And when they teach you, and you start to become something different. Still a human being, but with all of your childhood dramas and all that, on top of that, you can't imagine what you can create.
Wow, that's deep. That's deep. And I mean, I can only imagine. So you come home, you have a baby. So this baby is not your baby, or is this baby your
No,
baby?
he's mine. He's mine.
Okay, so he's yours. So did you know you were having a baby before you went in?
Yes.
Okay, so you missed a couple years. How was your mental when you came home? You have a child, you're adapting back into life.
Well, I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17. I left. I was overseas when I turned 18. First time being out of the country. I was dropped over in the Philippines. I was a 0311, which is a grunt, which is a infantry guy. They had different areas. My area over in the Philippines was to patrol the jungle. So I didn't have the luxury of being on the base all the time. I was out in the bush doing jungle patrols to secure certain areas. My son was born while I was overseas. And when I came home, I came home 6 days before he turned 2 years old. I came home to find out things weren't the way that I thought they were. And I don't want to belittle anybody, so I'm not going to get into too much detail on some of the things that took place. But I wasn't happy when I came home. And I noticed that my son didn't even really didn't cling to me. And so that kind of made me feel bad, because I was like, dang, if this is my firstborn and he don't even really want to come to me, you know? So it was a lot of trauma. So a lot of things that I learned about my dad, it was later on. I didn't actually come home from overseas and realize that it clicked in and like, damn, now I know why my dad was all messed up. Now I know why my dad was going through this. This happened, that happened, and he started reacting like this. One of the things that I was blessed with, I did never like drinking because of my dad's alcoholic problems. That was one of the things that was a turnoff for me. So I mean, I indulged in activity, but I just never wanted to consume it at a level that I want to be out of control, because I saw my dad out of control every time that he got drunk. So that was the blessing for me. I was not going to let no substance put me in the direction of not being able to be responsible for my actions. But yeah, when I came home, my son, you know, I didn't know enough about being a father, because my father didn't know how to be one. My father didn't teach me how to be no dad. My father taught me how to just let my anger escape whenever, you know, things didn't go my way.
Understood. Now, what kind of things did you do? I know you said that you had kind of a moment with that. You know, how did you kind of come out of it? How did you come to the realization that it wasn't normal? What kind of things did you do to kind of move out of that headspace? You know, what happened for you to have that epiphany?
Well, again, I God has been in my life from the day I was born. I can tell you that. I have a relationship with God that's amazing. And at this time, I can explain it, but back then I couldn't. But I just knew that he was always showing me stuff. And so when I came home, you know, I had a relationship with my grandmother that was phenomenal. And my grandmother used to teach me different things and prepare me for today. And what I realized is that God started to show me how my father got where he was. So he gave me the option to get to a point to forgive my dad. So by me loving God and knowing that I wanted to do right, it made it so that I can receive information, decipher it, and now I can understand, not saying it's okay what my dad did, but have an understanding why it happened, especially when I felt the same way sometimes. So
Okay.
go ahead.
So I'm sorry, I went brain freeze. You know how they go really quick. It was like, phew. So I want to go into, because you've had a couple marriages, a few marriages, but there was one particular where you and your wife, it was kind of pleasure off of abusing each other. Then I'm not going to say now, but that was the function of the relationship. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because I want the audience to see how traumatizing and damaging that can be after the long term effect of it.
Well, let me say this too. My first wife, she grew up almost in the same environment where it was a lot of trauma too. So her and I, when we came together, now let me tell you something. I had my first wife, beautiful lady. We was in church all the time and everything. But as she grew up, she saw the abuse. I grew up. So one time I remember she asked me, "What could I do to make you hit me?" And we was only 15 years old. And I was like, "You can't do nothing to make me hit you, not unless you spit on me or something." And one day we was, you know, having a little spat or something, and she spit at me. And I hit her. And that was the beginning of it. So now technically, I think the confusion with her was just like the confusion with me. Fighting don't mean y'all don't love each other. At least that's what we thought. And so throughout the marriage, we didn't have no problem with fighting each other. And it became a real serious issue because we had to be careful because it just I'm writing a book called 504 Payne Street. I grew up on Payne Street, Payne. But on the book, its cover is actually Pain Street. And I'm gonna grab that. And I want to right. So and you see in the title, a true story of abuse, love, survival, and recovery. Now, during the process of this, I really, really evaluated even what went on with me and my wife, what went on in my life, and it even went into my second marriage. So I realized that you have to come to reality of the abuse and understand that things happen and you have triggers that'll cause you to do certain things. As I became more mature and understanding in my process and my relationship with God got better, I realized I knew how to control my triggers. And I don't entertain abuse. I don't allow it and I don't give it.
Yes, sir. Now, did you? I know you said that your father did struggle. What probably was alcoholism. It don't seem like that when it is taking place. But did you find yourself, going down the same path while in the military? I know that is usually the what we call the drug of choice, or it's not considered a drug, so it's acceptable. So, did you find yourself, similar in that regard as well?
Yeah, but like I said, I had developed a dislike for liquor. But while I was overseas, man, that's what we did. As soon as we got off, we went into the clubs and got to drinking and doing whatever. So yeah, that became a part of a natural environment. I got a lot of liquor in my house today. I mean, why I don't know, because I don't really drink it like that. It's just for entertainment for other people. But I didn't take a liking. But the military also sets a tone to certain things. And that's one of the things also that I think that I'll do on one of my podcasts and probably have, or Miss Confidence, you might want to, y'all might want to think about this, is that a lot of military individuals come home from mental abuse, right? That they had as a child, that they brought into the military, they got compounded and it built up, and now they are confused. Then they come back to society after going through whatever they go through and try to navigate through these processes, and they actually are walking time bomb.
I definitely agree. People are going to the military for various reasons, all of them sometimes not good. Looking to escape some, and we're just walking into another lion's den in a sense.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, that escape piece, just
Yeah,
to escape the traumas that they're going through. And then they're walking into a whole nother trauma to only come out and not have the services that they need to help them through childhood abuse into serving abuse. And then now you're put back into society and boom, it's like a bomb.
Yeah. And we talking about let's come to reality where we are today. Why are our kids so messed up? You know why? Trauma. Okay? And let me tell you something. Everybody need counseling, one way or the other. White, black, Puerto Rican, it don't matter. All of us go through it, and when we don't receive it, we get to a point where we become self-inflicting with different things, and it causes us to then put that on other people around us. So, we are a program like this. This is powerful because people can talk about what they're doing. This is an opportunity for us. Let's face the truth. Let's talk the facts. Not everybody want to be an abuser. No. And not everybody know how to get cured from being one. But it's a necessity for us to have opportunity for people to come on and talk about their stories, and then they can go back and evaluate themselves even more. Because I can tell you this: once I get off, I'm going down and hug my wife again. You feel me? I'm gonna laugh some more today. I'm gonna, you know what I mean? I don't do that anymore. That is not what it's about. And it's programs like this that helps me. I don't have a problem with talking about it because I know who I am today. I know, and I do a lot to help people too. But this unfiltered, unspoken, this program here, I've watched several interviews with different people who have had different traumas outside of mine, and guess what? It makes you come to the realities, man. You know, we have a serious obligation to help other people know that they're not alone in the battle. That is people that we want to hear your story. So I tell you, thank you for having me on as a guest. Thank you for allowing me to speak my truth. And guess what? Maybe one day one of my grandchildren might see this interview and they can see, you know what? Granddaddy, you know, he told the truth, you know, and he dealt with the truth, and he was able to also change his life and be a blessing instead of being a burden or abuser.
Absolutely. I do just want to piggyback on something you said that was very important when you said everybody needs therapy, especially us people that look like us. Even if we have grown up in situations where we feel like we were privileged, you know, we didn't really experience too much. We got to think about the fact that we are from a long line of trauma that has been scientifically proven that it's genetic at this point. You know what I'm saying? Trauma gets passed down genetically. So, you know, to think that you might not need it, therapy is almost it's not real. It's something you should not live in that spirit. You should at least take a stab at it, because you know, a lot of and to be honest, a lot of the trauma we go through, sometimes we forget, because that is how our brain it shuts that part off. It makes you forget about it, and that therapy might just bring everything to the surface. So I say that even if you felt like you've lived a privileged life and you were well taken care of, and you ain't never, you know, experienced anything traumatic yourself, still take that time, you know, to do therapy, and it will definitely, you know, open up your knowledge of self, or help you understand the knowledge of yourself.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Sid, because I was talking to someone the other day, and we're going to come back to you really quick, Rodney. And I was telling them, I was like, I see posts where people say the belt whoopings and the extension cord whoopings was a part of them staying out of trouble or keeping them together. And I'm like, where's the mindset at, right? Where's the mind? Yeah, because I'm like, in my mindset, the belt and the extension cord was a whip, how they used to whip the slaves. So if you think the mindset of you behaving yourself because someone just put you through slavery because of what they went through slavery, is that a trauma that we're like, it's acceptable? Because then you take that to your child and you hit them with the belt and put whips, and you've cut the skin and it's bleeding from a belt or an extension cord. Is that the mindset that we're living in? That you don't think that that's abuse? That's a slave mentality that's been carried
that
down.
We've been doing. It's just like you can't even tell you couldn't even make sense of if I asked you why do you do it. You just do it because that's what you know
was done to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. But lashing someone, that is slavery. That is something that we went through slavery, and we're incorporating in it as discipline. That's not discipline. I thought we're supposed to be breaking the cycle. How do you break that cycle? You have to change the mindset.
Well, we all got to realize something. Trauma and drama is in everybody's life. It's not just in it's not just in the black people lives. I want to show you something. Everybody need counseling. Everybody need therapy. Do you know? Can you think about how white America feels sometimes? That everything that you see on television is them beating and killing and dominating somebody. That becomes a part of your thinking, a part of your DNA. They need therapy too. to understand you know better than we are. You're the same like we are. You bleed like we are. But their mindset, because of what they've been exposed to, which is a type of abuse as well, because we got a lot of good white people. Then we got a lot of black people who are out here that thinks that, you know, using a belt was a process of discipline. Well, that was the way that the slave masters disciplined us. And so what happened, we pick these things up and we think that it's okay. My father beat me with a extension cord. One time he beat me with a extension cord that it didn't even hurt anymore. That's how long he whooped me. And when he was beating me, I'd never forget, I would look up at him and I said, when I get big, I'm going to kill you. He said, what you say? I said, when I get big, I'm going to kill you. Now, understand that he had just got through whooping me with a extension cord. It had to go deep into my spirit for me to say that while he was doing it with the extension cord in his hand. So now I'm thinking that this is a part. And guess what? Did I do it? Yes, I did. I did it once to my daughter, and I did it once to one of my nieces. They did something that pissed me off real bad, and I whooped them with a extension cord. Shouldn't have never did that. I regret it to this day. I should
and that's
because
yeah,
you
and
know
that's
what?
a piece of it.
But that's abuse, and it's not to be accepted under no circumstances. But what triggered in my mind when I did do it, it was what I went through as a child. And I thought that, oh, it's okay to do this. It is not. It is not.
And that's the same. And I agree with you. As growing up, like our discipline, even with my kid being a mom, I didn't understand it, right? I didn't understand. So I made a lot of faulty mistakes starting off in parenthood because I had no one to guide me. I didn't have that support. I had to figure it out. And some of the things that I had to figure out came from childhood. But I might have cut my kids with a belt, but it was on their butt, right? It wasn't like all over. And I might have hit him with something or threw something at him, but I wouldn't hit him with an extension cord. And I remember one of my relatives hit my kids, uh, hit, beat my kids because with an extension cord, and I flipped out. My mentality went back to childhood, and I flipped out. But I have to also think about all the incorrect things that I was doing as a parent and all the things that I had to learn because generational curses are real.
It's
And if
real.
you don't break those cycles, because a lot of times we don't know, because I didn't have any guidance. I couldn't go to a lot of the women in my family and say, help me or give me advice because I didn't even want their advice because they were mentally screwed up. So how can I ask you for advice?
So can I share something also as well? See,
Yeah, this is your interview.
one of the biggest lessons I learned coming up, when you dealing with a child, you want to get them to understand what they did, why they did it, how it affected them, and everything. So I used to have a problem stealing out of my mother's purse when I was young. It started off with a nickel just to get a popsicle, and then when I got to teenage years, man, and you know, wanted a nickel bag or dime bag of weed, I'll get $5-10, right? And the older I got, it started getting a little more. Okay. So one time it was an incident. I had slipped in and I was trying to get just a $20 bill so I could go get a bag, buy an ounce of weed. And my mother was coming and I ended up taking the whole envelope and because I didn't have time to put it back. Didn't want to do that, but that's what happened. And my mom went looking for it and come to find out, she came to me and she said, you've been in my purse. And I stood up there and lied right to her face. No, ma, I didn't. And my mother said, she didn't even whoop me. You know what she said? She said, I'm not going to talk to you until you come tell me the truth. And my mom walked away from me. And as the day went by, I had the envelope. I hid it because I really wanted to put it back. And never forget this. One of the biggest lessons I've learned. So I was hungry. And I went to my mom and I was like, Mom, can I get something to eat? And she turned her back on me, walked away. I saw her feed my baby sister. It broke my heart. My mom walked around all day like I didn't exist. I cannot tell you that. It makes me emotional. I could not tell you what that was like. So eventually I went to my mother and I was crying. And I said, "Ma, I got to tell you the truth." And she said, "What?" I said, "I took it." And she said, "Okay, where is it?" And I gave it to her. And she said to me, "Don't you ever take nothing else from me." So my brother at the time, I didn't know that the envelope that I had took, it actually was my brother's money that he was saving for a car. So my mom told my brother what happened. So my brother took me outside and he sat me in the car. He said, "Yo, man," he said, "don't steal from mama, dude." He said, "You don't do that." He said, I'm going to tell you, I've done it too. He said, "But you got to get that under control. Don't steal from your mother." Do you know today, I don't go in a woman's pocketbook. I don't go in my wife's pocketbook for nothing. You understand me? My mother gave me one of the best lessons in the world. I didn't take nothing from my mom. I asked her. And I realized it didn't take a whooping for me to learn that. So I want people to understand physical abuse is not all the time the answer. The mental lesson sticks with you forever. And that's where I am today. My wife can sit her pocketbook down. I will not touch it. I don't care what it is. Sometimes she'll say, "Babe, go get my keys out of my purse." I bring her a purse. We've been together 15 years. This is my third marriage, right? And my wife laughed the first time. She said, "Just get it." I say, "No." And she said, and I had to tell her the story. And then once I told her, she understood. So my baby know today, I'm not putting my hands in her purse. That was a lesson that my mother taught me that has stayed with me until my dying day. And it'll be in my book, 504 Payne Street. And and that would be, if one of my grandkids ever did that to me, and I caught them, I would give them the same treatment because it was a lesson learned. Not physical abuse work all the time. The mental abuse stay with you forever, and the mental lessons.
Absolutely. Now, I guess what I do recall you saying that, towards the end, you and your father became best friends. What was that experience like for you? How did anything kind of come up in conversation, or any surprises from him, as far as rekindling you guys' relationship, or anything that just kind of was just like, wow, I didn't know, or how was that period before his passing for you?
We didn't really become best friends. I just was able to forgive him. You got to realize my father did a lot of things. He hurt. I stuff in my book, man. You ain't gonna believe that my father did. I mean, from stomping my mother almost to death in front of us, and a whole bunch of craziness. Now, when I came home from overseas, and I had two sons of my own, and some of the things that I went through and experienced with their mother, I realized some of the things that caused me to be the way I was in my abusive relationship as well. So I was able to tell my dad, "Yo," because I remember, let me tell you briefly. I came home from, I was overseas. No, I came back from off of some other situation, still in the military. Went and knocked on my door. Now, the last time my father had seen me before I went to the Marine Corps, this is what I told him. I said, "When I get back, I'm going to kill you." That's what I told him. And that was what I planned to do. But after going through my experience in the military and going through what I went through with my kid's mother and everything, I was like, whoa, man, this is some of the stuff that my dad had to deal with. And I know how I felt. So I took my kids down to meet my father. And I remember knocking on the door, and he peeked through the peephole and he said, "Who is it?" And I said, "It's your son, Rodney." And he was like, "What you want?" And I said, "I want you to meet your grandsons." And long story short, he didn't want to open the door. So he eventually opened it up with the chain still on it and peeked out, and I let him see my boys. And one of my boys kind of looked just like him. And it was funny when he was young, and you could see my dad in him. And so my father opened up the door and came in. And we sat down, and back then I used to smoke cigarettes, and my father gave me a beer, and I had a cigarette, and he had a cigarette, and he was sitting on the other side of the table, and my sons were sitting there, and he was like, so what made you come see me? I said, because Dad, I finally understand what happened to you. I finally see why you treated us the way you did. And he broke down crying. And he was like, I can't understand it that you will forgive me. I say, you know what? It's not that I just forgive you. It's just that I know you can't hurt me anymore. And I just want to be able to let you know I know what happened. And so we got to have a relationship for only 1 year in my whole life where I was able to look at my dad and have some kind of sense of connection with him. 1 year. He died January 1986 at 12:45 p.m. And I had plans to not kill my father, but to have my father to be able to enjoy life with his son, because he had been through so much drama himself. And I still to this day, I love being in the backyard working. I can do a lot of things my dad could do. And I believe in the spirit. The spirit never dies. And my dad comes to me sometime, and we be working on a project together, just me and him. And so I was able to forgive him. I didn't forget, but I was able to forgive him. And I asked God to take him where, because my father did a lot of stuff that I know that God wasn't pleased with. So I did one time, I found myself in deep prayer, said, Father God, in the name of Jesus, Lord, can you just take care of my dad? Can you give my dad some happiness? Can you let my dad have a little joy? Well, guess what? My father gets that with me now. He gets this through his spirit in my relationship with God and me and my dad. And I love my sons. And now, did I do everything right with my boys? No, I didn't. But you know what I do today? My boys are both way bigger than me. But when I see them, I hug them. I love my boys, And I'm the father that they needed then. And my oldest one is 43 years old, man. And I hug him tight. I hug him tight and let him know how much he means to me. And we talk about some of my abuse, not all the time, because it's not something that you really want to keep bringing up. But it's to a point now. I'm proud of the father I am today. Man, and working on getting better. I love my children. I love them, girls and boys, and I ain't got no problem with hugging them and die for them to protect them.
Mm-hmm. And you have that heart and soul, and I personally know that. I want to ask real quick, because we're almost at time. Did it's twofold? Did your mom eventually leave your dad, or did she stay up until he passed?
No, my father left after I started giving them some of them. I wanted to use the word, but some of them.
You could say this is unfiltered, unspoken.
Well, after he got a few of them ass whoopings, he packed up and rolled out, because it got to the point I was like, yo, let me explain something to you. You put your hands on my mom again. Then I started the first time I jumped on him, I was a yellow belt. After I became a green belt and a blue belt, shoot, girl, my skills was phenomenal. I could try to kick his head off, which, just standing there. So I took the martial arts very serious. I ended up studying the martial arts and receiving my black belt. And I also end up participating in different, we would call it tournaments in the Marine Corps. We would go back and we'd be in the jungle and get a circle, and all the guys who knew martial arts, we'd fight each other to see different skills and things of that nature. But anyway, long story short, yeah, my dad ended up packing up and rolling out, because if I came in and he had hit my mother, oh, it's on. I wouldn't care what time it was. And don't let it be that I done had a drink. It's going to be wicked. Now, let me say this. My father, every time I jumped on my dad was drunk. If my father had been sober, my father probably would have killed me. So see,
or maybe he just didn't have that energy no more
it
either.
wasn't even just that. For real, deep down inside, my father still loved me. Because he could have easily killed us. My father have killed people before. When he tried to blow the house up, he just didn't put enough of that stuff in it that it only blew the kitchen up. But when the fire department came there, I heard them talking. They said, man, he lucky that the whole roof didn't come in. He meant to blow us up. So my father could have killed us if he wanted to. You know, we used to, sleep with knives and stuff like that or whatever, under the pillow. And, I used to half the time wouldn't go to sleep because I want to make sure he wasn't hitting my mother. We would wake up.
I want to do something because we're almost at time, but I do have a question because I do want people to be transparent. You were at one point in your life, and if you can give us less than a minute on this, you attempted suicide as well multiple times. And I want people to say that because you overcame and you came out of that. But can you just give us like one quick and how you came out of that? And then I want to go into you giving advice on how you started the journey to healing. Two things.
Okay, with the suicide thing is this. Understand nobody really wants to die. They just want the pain to go away. 90% of the people. Especially if someone calls you and tell you I'm getting ready to kill myself, then they just calling you and say, I want some help. The times that I tried to commit suicide, I was traumatized to a point that I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know who to go to, how to go to it. And even when I was talking to God, I had this wall up that I couldn't receive the understanding, except that deep down inside, when I think now, God was protecting me. Suicide is never the answer. It's not. And let me say this. Most people, if they want to really kill themselves, they ain't going to call nobody. They just going to do it. But that's the gift of life that God gives you. So that's one of the biggest sins you could commit, to take your own life, because that's being selfish. You're not thinking about all the people you're going to hurt. So for anybody who's thinking about committing suicide, go get some help. It ain't nothing but the pain you just want to go away. It's like a nightmare, a dream you don't want to be in anymore. But killing yourself ain't gonna be the answer to that. So, yes, I did try it and didn't succeed because I'm still here, and thank God for that. And it's something that is not recommended to anyone under any circumstances. And as far as recovery, where I'm at today, one of the things that everybody got to learn, you have to learn to love yourself first. You got to love yourself first. Don't allow nobody to tell you you're a bum if you know you're not one. Don't allow nobody to hit you. Under no circumstances do you allow anybody to put their hands on you or to put you in a relationship where you think you're less than. You got to stay focused and put God first in everything you do. When you put God first, God is real. And I'm telling you something, when you humble yourself and put yourself in a position to turn to God, God will start to reveal the truth to you. The truth will set you free.
Good words to live by. Yes, sir. Now, we do see your banner scrolling across the bottom here. We like to call this part shameless plug. So you can let the people know how they can connect with you. If you have any services to utilize, you can brand yourself. Pretty much just give us the spiel or how people can connect with you. You have the floor.
Well, basically, my name is Rodney Grimes. I'm the host of People to People. My slogan is People to People, Power to Power, Positive Thinking People. My podcast is for you to bring your story that's going to benefit others. I don't want any negative energy. Yeah, you may have a negative beginning, but let's talk about the process of the positive part of it so that it can help others. You can get in touch with me through my email, which is Rodney Grimes. It's Rodney G PTP at yahoo.com. Okay. Go to my Facebook, my Instagram, as you see it strolling down there. I'd love to interview individuals who starting businesses, that have poetry, you're a music artist or whatever. You just got a story to tell. We like to share it on People to People. That's the People podcast of the DMV. You can go on YouTube and reach me. Please go on YouTube and subscribe, and just know that I am also associated with Unspoken, Unfiltered, Unspoken. Also, I am affiliated with The Good Fight as well. These are individuals who I be with on the regular. So I just want you to know that's it. And God bless you. Thank y'all for having me.
It was such an honor. And you know Rodney old school because he still got a Yahoo email account. So still make sure you send that email to him, right? You know
Let me
I
know
love
how you
you.
enjoy the
Don't do
program.
him like that. As long as it's not AOL, we ain't got to talk about it.
That's
No,
right.
I still have an MSN and I don't care and I ain't changing. I don't care. I'm right with you, Rodney. So, but you know I had to say something smart, right?
Love you, baby.
I love you too, brother, and I love Zena. Zena is Rodney's wife. That is a couple that supports the Good Fight and Unfiltered Unspoken podcast. So I do want to thank y'all and God bless y'all for everything that y'all have done and contributed to us. So
That's right.
yeah,
Hey, y'all need to know. Guess what? And I ain't to be played with, so don't mess with my baby sister. She already know. I'm a phone call away.
that's right. And Sid in it too. You better not mess with Sid either.
Hey, Sid, you were in the family, baby.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you. Can't nobody
Yes.
talk about my folks in my vicinity either. So
Say
respect is
what?
mutual.
You gonna get it because we
Yeah.
protect each other.
That's right.
Yes. So I want to thank everyone for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken podcast. I hope that Rodney's testimony and his life experience um, connected with you if you are going through, especially my males, because my males, y'all hold on to stuff longer, and I just hope that y'all can release and just focus on your healing journey, mommy issues, daddy issues, baby mama issues, molestation, anything that you're going through, my brothers, all nationalities, all of you, don't be afraid to heal. A lot of y'all suppress, but do not be afraid to heal. So, if you have learned anything from Rodney's testimony today, from going through childhood abuse, through adult abuse, through uh, abuse, him being an abuser as well, but he has completely changed his life and found the power of healing through God. So, thank you for tuning into Unfiltered Unspoken podcast, where we are going to continue to share life experiences in hopes that if you're going through anything or you know someone that's going through something, like, share, subscribe, and let's start the journey to healing by facing our traumas. Y'all have a blessed day.
Some technical difficulties, fam. We are out.